You should not lead trump because you are in doubt. You should lead trump because you're pretty confident it's the right lead. I think maybe a couple of you have heard this story, but it's one of my favorites. So if you're hearing it for the second time, sorry, but it does amuse me. So it drives me nuts when I hear somebody say, "When in doubt, lead Trump." So I was playing at a sectional in Cheyenne several years ago with a longtime friend of mine, and we were not involved in the auction, and the opponents went about their merry business to a contract of 4 spades. I was not on opening lead. My partner was on opening lead. I had complete faith that partner was going to lead a trump because I could tell from my side of the table that a trump lead was called for based on the bidding we had just witnessed. And I was pretty sure that partner would work this out as well. So she thought, considered her lead, but she always considers her lead deliberately, just to make sure, she likes to double check and triple check, counts her hand 3 times, just make sure she's doing the right thing before she commits. And after much thought, a trump hit the table. And the dummy puts her hand down and is all giggly and, "Ha, when in doubt, lead trump." And my partner peered over her glasses in that way that's just a little condescending and says, "I wasn't in doubt." I wanted to give her a hug. I was very amused by these proceedings. Trump should not be led because you're in doubt. They should be led because you know it's the right lead. Now, what we need to deal with is, how do you know, right? How do you know it's right to lead Trump? And there are a couple different reasons. We talked about one last week where we said a trump can be a passive defense. We had a hand today that it turned out I probably should have led a trump because my lead gave away a trick, or it exposed a card where Declare had a 2-way finesse, and I just made it, at the very least, I made it easier for Declare to get over tricks. So sometimes it's right just because it's least likely to give something away, and you're just trying to be passive. But sometimes the auction screams for a trump. And if the opponents have that auction, if you are absolutely confident that a trump lead is right, then you should have a trump on the table, even if your trump holding is queen third. That looks like a terrible suit to lead trump from, right? You might be scoring your queen on a finesse, right? Especially if Declare is on your right, if the long hand is on your right. You might think, oh, what if I'm leading away from my queen in the ace king jack, and they were going to take a finesse, and I was going to win this queen. And now they score their jack, and when they play ace king, my queen drops. I gave away a trick. When you need to be leading trump, that trick almost always comes back to you, and often it comes back double or triple. The trick that you thought you blew by leading away from your queen of trump, you got back in side suit tricks that they were not able to ruff, because you cut down their ruffing power. So if you think a trump lead is right, no matter what your holding is, lead trump. I know it's hard, I know it hurts, but if it's the right thing to do, you gotta do it. So what are those conditions? How do you know? This first one is very common. The opponents don't find a convenient fit. They don't freely raise their partner's suit. They just take a preference. We'll look at a hand in a moment, and I think the auction for that hand goes something like this. A spade opening, a no trump, forcing or not forcing doesn't really matter. 2 diamonds by opener, pass by responder. That is an example of a weak preference. They like Declare's second suit better than they like Declare's first suit because they just made it trump. And clearly responder has a pretty minimal hand, right? Because they didn't bid a game. They didn't invite a game. They said, nope, this is it. Partner, if you can't jump shift or do something to show a big hand, I'm just on my 6 to 8 or 9 points over here. Where are we going? This looks like the best spot. It may be the last making spot. It may not even make it. That is a weak preference. Or it could be a situation where maybe you bid again, but you still show weakness. So like, what if we have an auction that goes something like a diamond, a heart, 2 clubs, 2 diamonds? When you bid 2 diamonds, responder, you showed a weak hand, right? And sometimes I see people, I think, get confused. They're like, well, you bid again, you showed a better hand. No, you didn't. Opener gave you a choice. Opener said, I have the minors. And you said, okay, well, if you're gonna hold a gun to my head and make me pick a minor, I pick diamonds. You didn't show any extra values. You didn't jump. You didn't bid 2-no. You didn't bid 4-suit forcing. You didn't do anything that was forward going at all. All you did was, all right, I don't like your 2nd suit. Let's go back to your 1st suit. But if you had passed 2 clubs, you would have expressed your preference for clubs that way. That's what we mean by a weak preference. It is almost always right for the defense to have a trump on the table on a weak preference option. Almost always. Now, sometimes the dummy hits and there are more trumps than expected. Like, let's say this, sometimes you might lead a trump and dummy shows up with 4 or 5 diamonds. And they actually have a really good fit there. Okay, that can happen. I mean, it was still right for them to introduce their major and look for heart fit, right? Okay, so sometimes you see the dummy, and then from that point forward, you give up leading trump because you're never going to cut down roughing them, right? If dummy shows up with 4 or 5 surprise trumps, you made the right lead, but there's no future in there, and in fact, you're probably not beating this hand if that's the case, just based on the fact that they have such a big fit. That can be the case. That can happen sometimes. Now, sometimes we get an indication that there's going to be shortness in the dummy. A singleton. Let's go back to that first auction, which was a spade, a no trump, 2 diamonds. And I didn't even give you a hand yet. I didn't even tell you what your hand is when you're on opening lead. Just from that bidding alone. How many spades do you think are in the dummy? Joanne votes for 1.
2.
Could be 2.
No.
Not 3. Clearly, responder would be raising spades or preferencing spades with 3. Probably raising them to start off. So 2 at a max.
Yeah, you give 2, yeah.
And I think greater likelihood the dummy has a singleton spade, right? Because wouldn't responder preference with a doubleton sometimes? Now, maybe they actually have 4 or 5 diamonds, and diamonds is so clearly a better contract than spades that maybe they have 2 spades, but if they have 4 or 5 diamonds, diamonds is clearly the better spot. On the other hand, what if dummy had 3 diamonds and 2 spades? Might as well play in the major, right? Opener is only promised 4 diamonds. We could play a 4-3 diamond fit, or we could play a 5-2 spade fit. Yeah, it's probably a wash, right? Might as well play in the major. Score's better when it makes. Score's the same if it goes set, right? If it's down 1, it's down 1. There's a very strong indication that dummy is going to show up with a singleton spade. And unless declares spades are really good, they're probably going to want to rough spade losers in the dummy. And you want to take away that ability. You want to cut down dummy's roughing power. So sometimes we get an indication that there's shortness in dummy, or sometimes the opponents avoid no trump, kind of falls into that same category. Maybe somebody is short in an unbid suit, and that's why we're not hearing no trump. But a lot of times leading trump is right on other hands, where the opponents seem to be wandering around looking for the best contract, and yet not settling in no trump at some point. Now, I do want to add one little qualifier. Trump leads tend to not be that effective, even when you know there's going to be shortness in dummy, if dummy is guaranteed to have 4 or more trumps. Can anybody think of a situation where that might be the case? Do I have people who play splinters? Anybody here play splinter bid? 1 spade, and then let's say you immediately jump to 4 diamonds. Now, splinters isn't on the agenda for today, but the most common treatment for that auction by the 4 diamond bidder, it says, partner, I'm game forcing, I have a singleton or void in diamonds, and I have 4 spades with me. So, because splinter bids promise 4 trumps, usually leading trump is not effective. They can usually still rough whatever losers they need to rough. So not every time that dummy shows shortness is it right to lead trump. You may not be costing anything by leading trump. It may be safe, but if you think that you are going to effectively cut down their roughing power, it's probably not gonna, you're probably not going anywhere.
So a Jacoby 2 no trump, would you just say?
Yeah, Jacoby 2-No is another one of those bids promising a 9-card fit. Now, Jacoby 2-No doesn't promise shortness in dummy the way Splinter does. So there's that too. Jacoby 2-No often tends to be more balanced.
So if an opener could talk about his shortness, right?
Yes,
Jacoby 2-No.
but again, in that case, you know, I remember the opener's got a 5-card suit, right? So opener's not worried about roughing in their hand.
But you would say that's not a situation where, on the first
No.
subject, where you
No,
tap?
shortness, no,
Okay.
shortness specifically in dummy. Or
Okay.
maybe I should say shortness in the short hand. Shortness in the hand that has fewer trump. Yeah, you're not gonna scare or declare when they have a singleton or void in their hand and you lead trump. Because they're probably gonna do that anyhow, right? Maybe they do whatever roughing they need to do in the dummy, but they're gonna draw trump anyhow. So you're not making declare nervous by Trump leads when the opponents are in 9-card or better fits. I find usually not to be very effective. Now 3 is important. This is where you can look at your own hand for an indication. Let's say the opponents, one or both of them, have shown a side suit, right? Maybe they have a perfectly good fit in spades, but maybe they showed clubs during the auction, and you have something like Queen 10 4th or Queen 10 5th of clubs. And so what you might be thinking in that situation is, all right, I don't know if dummy has shortness anywhere, but dummy has this club suit, and declare might try to set it up, and their best chance to set it up is to rough out my Queen 10. So in that case, leading trump might be effective. On the other hand, if they show a side suit and you're holding in that suit is 3 small or Jack 3rd or something like that, it sounds like their side suit is going to be splitting for them, even if they're missing an honor. And so trump leads probably aren't going to do any damage. But you might be able to set up a winner in that side suit if you prevent them from roughing it out. And then the last one, and I think this is one that people often get wrong, but sometimes we have these situations where the hand is clearly ours, we have expressed the balance of power, either opener has shown a bigger hand, or your partner opens, and let's say you have invitational or better, and you go about your way to game, but the opponents get in the way and mess things up, they preempt, you were gonna bid 4 spades to make, you were vulnerable, the opponents go to 5 diamonds, they sacrifice, they're not vulnerable, it's totally clear from the bidding that this is your hand, and that the opponents are taking a sacrifice because they think it's gonna be less costly than letting you play your 4 spades. You finally reach the point in the auction, you're like, you know what, we can't bid anymore, we just have to double and do our best on defense and hope that we can collect a big number that's better than our game. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, you want voluntary sacrifice, where it's clear to everybody at the table what's going on. It's not their hand, but they're gonna play this thing. They stole it from us. Okay, so you get to the point where you double them for penalty. After you double them for penalty, if you're on opening lead, if you have a trump, you should probably be leading. That may not be intuitive to you. You may be leading your suit. But your suit is not going to go very far, is it?
No.
If you have a big fit, if you have a 9-card fit and they're sacrificing, you can almost guarantee you one of them's got a singleton or a board. One of the reasons they're sacrificing is they have no defense against your game. All right. Well, let's actually use this auction here up on top and bring it into reality with an example. That exact auction, spade opening by south, a no trump by north, 2 diamonds, all pass. And here you are west on lead, and you have king third of spades. You have ace 10, 8 deuce of hearts. 3 diamonds to the ace, that's trump. And 3 little clubs. Okay, well, what do you want to lead? You may be tempted to lead an unbid suit. They bid spades and diamonds. You may think, well, I should be leading clubs or hearts. But you actually shouldn't. I really don't like the heart lead in particular from ace 10. That doesn't look very attractive. The club looks maybe a little safer. But this is a weak preference auction. We expect not a lot of high card points in them, right? Less than invitational. And we don't know how many diamonds dummy has, but we know that dummy likes diamonds a lot better than spades. Now you do have 1 spade on it. Declare's spades aren't necessarily splitting very poorly. If Declare, we figure Declare has 5 spades, right? Try and construct what the hand's going to look like, and then we can adjust if the dummy looks a little different than we expect. Declare opened a spade but did not rebid them. So South has 5 spades but not 6, right? We have 3, we think there might be a singleton in dummy, right? Very good chance there's a singleton spade because of the weak preference. Which would put how many spades in partner's hand? 4, right? Well, if those four spades in partner's hand, if there's even a queen or a jack or a 10 over there, we might be able to get a couple of spade tricks by cutting down roughing power. So hopefully that's what you're thinking. And if Declare's spades are really good, okay, maybe we don't hurt them by cutting down roughing power, but but at least we could, at the very least, maybe ensure that our king doesn't get roughed out. Right? Because couldn't we see Declare going, even if Declare has ace, queen, jack, rather than taking a potentially losing finesse, they might go ace of spades, rough a spade, come back to their hand, rough a spade, and now there goes your king, right? Well, we'd actually like to maybe see if we can score our king. So I think this calls for a trump lead. This, by the way, is also out of the book. It is in the hallway. So now the next question is, which one? On this particular hand, you could go ace of diamonds and a diamond, or you could go small diamond first. I would give a slight preference to the small diamond. And there's a very specific reason why. What if partner had king doubleton of diamonds? They might be an 8-card diamond fit, right? That is possible. We know their spade fit isn't great because of how the bidding's gone. They could be in an 8-card diamond fit. Maybe dummy shows up with 4 diamonds. If you were to start with a small diamond, how would the defense go? And what if partner had king doubleton? Partner wins the king, returns the diamond to the ace, and you get a 3rd round of trump play. Take away 3 of their dummies' trumps. Yeah, they would win the 3rd round, but you have really cut down ruffing power. Whereas if you start ace and then you play another and catch partner with the king, the partner might not be able to lead that third round. So that's why I think small is probably best. But either is reasonable.
Kurt, but, you know, you said way back when, don't ever underlead an ace.
Against suit contracts in a side suit. This is trump.
This is trouble.
Your ace of diamonds is never going away, right? You can always underlead the ace of trump. It's not going away. Underleading the ace of hearts would be a terrible idea. What if DeClaire had singleton king? Then your ace would go away, right? You'd never get it. That's the difference. Yeah, we don't underlead aces in situations where those aces might go away. If it's the ace of trump, it's not going away. If we're defending no trump, we would routinely underlead aces because they're not going away in no trump. Right? So yes, underleading ace of diamonds, good. Underleading ace of hearts, bad. Sometimes we just reduce bridge to caveman speak, right? All right, so this is what you're going to get in dummy, and I think you'll be really happy that you led trump.